Welcome. This is a recording covering what we talked about in our Zoom meeting this week. So this is the first week of May 4th through May 8th. And one of the assignments from this week is getting you ready to write a persuasive essay. So I've gotten a lot of questions about the rhetorical devices, and are you just making up random ones? No. What I want you to do is I want you to think about what your argument was last week. And I want you to use the same claim from last week. So if your claim last week is that people should not text and drive because it's really dangerous, then I want you to use that same claim. Write that claim here. And then you are coming up with examples of these rhetorical devices: rhetorical question, analogy, simile, metaphor, parallelism, repetition, allusion, and antidote, to help make your point that texting and driving is bad, or whatever your argument was. Dress codes are necessary, or school uniforms are unfair. Whatever your claim was, you are using these rhetorical device examples to support that claim. So let's go over those rhetorical devices really quick. A few weeks ago, we covered ethos, pathos, and logos. And so just a quick review on that. Ethos is when you are appealing to someone's ethics. That means you're appealing to their sense of right and wrong. Pathos is when you are appealing to someone's emotion, when you are trying to convince them of something by making them feel something emotional about it. And logos is the appeal to logic. So you are using facts and reason to make people see your side of things. And that's great, but that's just theory. How do we do these things? How do we appeal to ethics or emotion or logic? And that's where these rhetorical devices come in. These rhetorical devices are a way to help you create your logos, ethos, and pathos in your argument. Okay, so a rhetorical question is a question that is not meant to be answered. It's meant to help make a point. So if my claim is, if what I'm trying to persuade is that people should donate to the local food bank, I might use a rhetorical question and just say, have you ever gone without food for 24 hours? That question's not meant to be answered. It's meant to get people thinking about being hungry, so that when I try to convince them to donate food to the local food bank, they're thinking about what it's like to be hungry. So a rhetorical question is a question that's meant to get you thinking about my point, not a question that's meant to be answered. An analogy is where you're using two different situations to make a point. You're using one situation to make a point about another situation. So if the situation that I'm in is that my parents took my phone away from me, that's my situation, A plus B. My phone got taken away from me. That's my situation. I need to make that equal to something else to make them understand how important it is. So I'm going to compare my situation to a hiker not having a map and compass, having their map and compass taken away, right? So I use these two ideas to get my parents to understand. So I talk about how if I was going out hiking in the woods with complex trails and you took away my map and compass, I would probably get lost. I wouldn't know how to navigate to get home. My phone is my map and compass. If you take my phone away from me, I don't know how to navigate in this world without it. I'm completely lost. So I'm using two situations, one situation to help you understand another situation. That's analogy. A simile is where I love the equal sign from the analogy in this one too. A simile is where you are comparing two things. You're saying two things are equal. One thing is like another, but you're doing it much more directly. An analogy is more vague. An analogy is storytelling through these different situations, whereas a simile is usually more of just a one-liner. If I'm trying to make a point that working with different branches of government, different government officials, is like trying to work with different wild animals at the zoo at the same time. Instead of going into a big long explanation, I might just say governments are like cages full of wild animals. So using that like or as to compare two things in a very direct statement, that is a simile. A metaphor is kind of like a simile, kind of like an analogy, except for you're not comparing things directly using like or as. You're saying something is the same thing as something else, right? So you're not saying that his medical bill was like a dagger to his finances. You just state it as though it is the same thing. His medical bill was a dagger to his finances, right? That medical bill and that dagger, they are the same thing. So a metaphor is much more powerful. And then parallelism has to do with grammar. It's when you're using the same grammatical structure. And one of the things you're going to find with parallelism is oftentimes repetition is something that is used to help you in parallelism. But when you're thinking about parallelism, you're not thinking about repetition, you're thinking about grammar. So if I'm trying to convince you that Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete in basketball, I'm going to repeat the phrase in the entire over and over again grammatically, in the same way grammatically, in order to make my point. Michael Jordan is the greatest athlete in the entire league, in the entire world, in the entire universe. By using that grammatical structure over and over again, I'm using parallelism and repetition, okay? You can see over here that it doesn't have to be the same wording. So to excel at soccer, one should be good at running and to kick well. That is not parallel structure. At running and to kick well are not grammatically the same. But if I just change that to excel at soccer, one should be good at running and kicking. Now I'm using running, ing, and kicking, ing. So they're grammatically using the same format. Now I'm using parallel structure. So you can see sometimes you can just repeat a phrase over and over again to help you with the grammatically in a sentence. And sometimes you can just you can use the same style of verb and you're using parallelism. Okay, so speaking of repetition is when you are using the same word or phrase over and over again, but it doesn't necessarily have to be grammatically the same. For example, in Martin Luther King Jr.'s speech, I Have a Dream, he uses the word dream over and over again, not grammatically the same throughout the speech, but the same idea, the idea that a dream is something that we strive for. A dream is something that is important. A dream is something that we need to have and keep working towards. So using that word dream over and over again makes a point. And allusion, finally, allusions are when you are referring to a famous person, place, or event to make a point. So if I had a friend who betrayed me, I might refer to them as Brutus. Brutus was Emperor Caesar's, the Roman Emperor Caesar's best friend. And Caesar trusted Brutus. And Brutus ended up killing Caesar in order to overthrow him, and a bunch of other people wanted to overthrow Caesar on the throne. Caesar didn't even see it coming because he trusted Brutus. So if I were to call one of my friends Brutus, I don't have to explain how I feel about that friend. By just using the name Brutus, I am saying that this person has betrayed me, they have backstabbed me, and I trusted them. Okay? If I call someone Scrooge, I am referring to a famous character in literature that I don't have to explain that person is greedy, that person is only cares about themselves. By calling them Scrooge, that's evident. If I call someone Einstein, I don't have to explain that I think that person is really smart, because by referring to Albert Einstein, a historical figure, that point is already made for me. So illusion is a really powerful way to make a point without having to explain a lot. And then antidote. Antidote is a story. Antidote is when you tell a story in order to make a point. So if I don't want to lecture you about eating healthy. So instead of telling you you should eat healthy, junk food is bad for you. You already know junk food is bad for you. Telling you that doesn't do any good. But if I give you an antidote, if I tell you a story about this guy, true story here, this guy, he wanted to see really how bad is it to eat junk food every day. So he decided he was going to eat McDonald's every day, only McDonald's, breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day for a month. And not like going in and having salads or yogurt parfaits, but like Egg McMuffins and Big Macs and French fries and those kinds of things. And that's all he ate for a month. It's just McDonald's junk food. And at the end of a month, he went to the doctor. He was on the verge of diabetes. He was having heart problems. He was having lung problems. And the doctor told him it is because of the way he's eating, because he's not getting vegetables, because the processing of fast food and junk food is so hard on your body. By telling you that story, I'm hoping that I'm going to make my point without having to lecture you with information you already know. All right, so when you go back to your assignment here, you are going to come up with whatever your claim was from last week. You're going to come up with a rhetorical question to help make that point, an analogy to make that point, a simile, a metaphor, use of parallelism, repetition, illusion, and antidote. And the more different examples you can come up with here, the easier your essay will be to write. So I encourage you to try to, even though some of these will overlap very easily, I encourage you to come up with different examples for each one to make your life easier later. Okay? Don't forget, if you're not understanding something, if you're confused, please shoot me an email so that I can help you out with it. Talk to you soon. Bye.